Just working a little bit deeper through 1.2, when we're confirming the requirements for the evidence to be collected, I've also on this week's PowerPoint just inserted a couple of the documents from our website. So if you were working for Evoke as an RTO, that just fleshes out a little bit more about the reasonable adjustments, etc., and grievance procedures from our policy. So look, this is really just for your own interest. When you work for your RTO, you'll have access to their policies and procedures. So just to explain what I'm talking about here, when we have to go through and tick off that we've discussed with the candidate, you know, the purposes and outcomes, well, that's quite simple. We actually just go down and see that that has been mentioned on the assessment plan there. But it's also a good chance to double check that you're on the same page. You know, you're assuming perhaps that it's to achieve competency. This has come across from instruction from your RTO or in previous conversations with the candidate or with the candidate's employer. But, you know, you're just wanting to make sure with the candidate that, you know, the purpose of the assessment today is what they expect it to be. So it's a good check up there. You know, you've double checked the units of competency that you'll be covering, making sure that the candidate is up to date, that their learning has been achieved, especially if it's e-learning. You want to make sure that, you know, that they're definitely ready at that point. And then you're looking at things like the appeals process, which is what this lecture is going to be discussing today. So, and also the special needs. We've got information for you today on the special needs. So let's just flick back to that PowerPoint. And you can see the grievance procedure. We actually have Evoke's grievance procedure. Oh. Okay, so if there's any appeals on the judgments of the assessor, we actually have that available to our trainers and assessors on our through our staff induction and on our staff section of the website there at evoke.edu.au. So your RTO would have a similar thing written in their policy and procedures manual for you to access, and you'll see for the candidate, when we go back into that assessment plan, that the appeal procedure is just, you know, condensed there on our assessment plan template. I'm sure your RTO will have something similar. So when you're going through your staff induction, they'll explain where to access their tools. And also, you have the reasonable adjustment. Okay, so when you have a learner, so we're saying now Susan has a visual impairment. We're just extending our case study there. And in our policy as well, we have information about reasonable adjustment and where the learners can access that. So we have under our troubleshooting on the Course Sites platform information about appealing for reasonable adjustment there. And it should be fairly stock standard across the board with all RTOs. So there's some information for you to have a read of. Of course, the final thing as far as confirming requirements for the evidence to be collected, you really need to check if you're assessing in the workplace that you're complying with any workplace's OH&S policies. So to give you an example of what I'm talking about, if we're going into John's workplace and we're going to assess him driving the forklift, we have to comply with Mike's Bikes, the organisation's OH&S policy about where pedestrians are allowed to stand in the warehouse. They would have rules around, you know, probably painted out areas for where only forklifts can go and no human beings are allowed to step in that area. That's just an example.